You've got a quarterback, huge contract, a team with, playoff aspirations, and now this notoriously difficult injury to come back from. It's a perfect storm, really.
Okay, so for those who maybe they're not, up on their sports medicine, walk us through what happens when we're talking about an Achilles tear. One of the articles you sent called it a catastrophic injury, which is kind of dramatic, but
Well, it can be. I mean, it's not an exaggeration. Think about it. Your Achilles tendon, it's the thickest tendon in your body, right?
Mhm.
Connects your calf muscle down to your heel bone. It has to be strong to handle, like all the force of running, jumping, cutting. Now imagine that tendon essentially snapping like a rubber band,
Hmm.
complete rupture.
Ouch. Just thinking about it, you sent over some research about how a lot of times athletes will describe it as feeling like they got kicked or like hearing a pop.
Exactly. It's sudden, it's incredibly painful. And with the full rupture like what Watson experienced, surgery is pretty much the only option.
So, not a quick fix then. What's the recovery process look like for something this intense?
So surgery is just the first step. We're not talking about, a simple procedure here. They have to go in and actually stitch this thick tendon back together. Then it's immobilization for weeks, sometimes months. And then, and this is the long part, it's months of rehab, rebuilding strength, flexibility, and honestly, confidence in that leg. It's a grind.
And didn't you send over some research about how, I think it was age can play a factor in how well someone recovers from this kind of injury?
Absolutely. And this is where it gets really interesting, especially in Watson's case. Because as we get older, our tendons just don't heal as efficiently.
Hmm.
Less blood flow, less collagen production, all the things that help us bounce back, they kind of slow down.
And if I'm remembering correctly, Watson's not exactly a spring chicken anymore, and he's had some other injuries he's dealt with in the past, right?
He's on the wrong side of his 20s now, and he does have a history of some ankle issues, if I'm remembering correctly. So, yeah, all those things factor into the recovery equation.
Man, sounds like he's got a long road ahead. But I mean, it's not impossible to come back from this, right? I'm thinking of Kobe Bryant. He had a pretty nasty Achilles tear later in his career.
Right. And Kobe's kind of the gold standard for this injury. But it's important to remember that, every athlete, every body is different. There are new surgical techniques like the minimally invasive procedures that can help. But a lot of it comes down to that post-surgical rehab, that dedication, and honestly, the mental game. Can Watson stay disciplined, stay positive through all of that? That's going to be huge.
And speaking of pressure, we got to talk about what this means for the Browns. They went all in on this season with Watson at the helm. So what happens now? Can they even think about salvaging their playoff hopes?
It's a tough spot.
Yeah.
Without Watson, they're looking at a depth chart with, well, you've got Dorian Thompson-Robinson, a rookie, promising, sure, but he's still green. And then there's Jameis Winston, who's a veteran, has a cannon for an arm.
Right, but Winston's a bit of a wild card, though, right? Like, capable of greatness, but also capable of, well,
Let's just say he's unpredictable. So can either of them really fill those shoes that Watson left empty? It's a massive question mark. And honestly, the Browns' defense is going to have to be absolutely stellar for them to even have a shot at the playoffs now.
wow. I mean, you really don't think about it until it happens, but this just shows how, even in a team sport, one player's injury can just, completely change the entire landscape of things.
It's a great point. We get caught up in the wins and losses, the fantasy stats, all of that. But at the end of the day, it is a game of human beings. Bodies break down, and how they respond to those setbacks, both physically and mentally, that's a huge part of the story, too. It's a side of sports we don't always get to see.
Absolutely. This is definitely a story we'll be following closely. Okay, folks, that's it for this deep dive. Until next time, keep your heads up and your Achilles tendons strong.